but Eazy-E's return diss track was even better, so good that it warranted its own EP, which was also a really good EP. But we're not here to talk about rap and rap history, although I could do a whole show about that. No, Snoop Dogg is a pretty popular West Coast rapper. He's mellowed out a lot in the last few years, and really, he seems like a kind of a cool guy. I mean, he's really just laid back. He's not really much of an offensive sort of person. You know what I mean? And even so, a big deal. The guy takes a photo. So a Texas state trooper was on the job for nearly 20 years, and now he's being reprimanded for posing in a photo with Snoop Dogg that went viral on the rapper's Instagram account in March. Billy Spears is the trooper's name. Again, he's in Texas, and he's suing the Texas Department of Public Safety, or DPS, for dinging him for being in a photo with a public figure who has a well-known criminal background, including numerous drug charges. The public figure posted the photo on social media, and it reflects poorly on the agency, according to the reprimand. Now, I mean, yeah, Snoop Dogg is not a role model by any means. He's not somebody that the kids should look up to. But big deal. So's Willie Nelson, Like, I sort of put them on the same tier. Different genres of music, obviously, but same sort of personalities, I think. Willie Nelson does a lot of good work in helping out farms and that sort of thing, and that's all good. And Snoop Dogg does, he's Snoop Dogg. He was on the roast of Donald Trump, and he was pretty funny on that. So, he's got that going for him. But I mean, really, Snoop Dogg seems like a cool enough guy. Well, Billy Spears is suing the Department of Public Safety in Texas. The trooper's attorney, Ty Clevenger, says they kind of made this up on the fly. Says Ty Clevenger to Ars Technica during an interview, saying that they could not point to any policy, rule, order, or law. So here's what's got Spears disciplined, according to his lawsuit. Trooper Spears worked as an approved off-duty job at a backstage security, at the South by Southwest conference in Austin, or concert in Austin. I got to read. I need to learn how to read. I was homeschooled. I can't read. While Trooper Spears was working backstage, an assistant to Calvin Broadus, a.k.a. Snoop Dogg, that's his real name, Calvin Broadus, Snoop Dogg, asked if he could take a photograph of Snoop Dogg standing next to the trooper Spears. He agreed, and the dog father's assistant later posted the photograph to Instagram with the caption, "Me and my deputy dog." So Spears' attorney pointed out that about 5 years ago, the trooper gave Willie Nelson a tour of the state capitol building and posed for a picture, but they were not reprimanded. And there's actually a photo, which they have in the article, of Willie Nelson getting a VIP tour of the Texas State Capitol building. Now, not much of anyone is going to be offended by Willie Nelson. I mean, say what you will about Willie Nelson's drug use and all that sort of thing. I wouldn't even call it drug use. But say what you will about Willie Nelson's lifestyle choices. He seems like a nice enough guy, right? Like, nobody's going to be offended by Willie Nelson, for heaven's sake. Like, who's going to get upset about Willie Nelson? And the same sort of goes for Snoop Dogg nowadays. I mean, yeah, he puts out music that's not like of the highest tier of artistic quality, but it's not like the most evil, heinous stuff you've ever heard. I mean, yeah, he talks about kind of weird and reprehensible actions, but it's all fiction. It's like a movie, it's just fiction. It's not like he really goes around smacking people in clubs. It doesn't really work that way. He seems like a nice enough guy overall. So Clevenger wrote on his blog saying, apparently it's okay to be photographed with a long-haired white musician who smokes weed, but not a long-haired black musician who smokes weed. And I can't wait to hear how DPS is going to try to explain that to an Austin jury, Clevenger wrote on his blog. The agency declined to comment, telling Ars Technica in an email that it does not discuss ongoing litigations. Clevenger also suspects the reprimand was in retaliation for Spears complaining about a fellow officer. Spears was briefly detained at a concert in Lake Fork while in plainclothes after he and another off-duty Texas officer were working security and exchanged words. So maybe he had a problem with another officer when they were off-duty. I mean, that really doesn't matter, or it shouldn't matter, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. Now, see, I'm not anti-individual, if this makes any sense. Let me explain my stance on law enforcement. I am not anti the individuals who work in law enforcement, right? I'm not anti the individuals who work as peace officers, like this guy. He seems like a cool guy. This particular state trooper, or Texas trooper, I suppose, he seems like a really cool guy. I'd hang out with him. And a lot of cops seem like really cool guys. I'd hang out with them. And a lot of sheriff's deputies seem like really cool guys, and I'd hang out with them. It's the system that they work for that I'm not really in favor of, and a lot of the laws which they enforce that I'm not really in favor of. And I'm questioning of their motives in enforcing a lot of those rules and regulations and such. And I think a lot of them are just mistaken or don't realize what they're doing a lot of the time. Still, the Nuremberg argument doesn't work, but overall, like as people, they seem like kind of cool guys. A lot of these guys just seem like, they're regular guys that just want to go home. There's no reason to give them any nonsense for them just doing what they're going to do. They made a career choice, and that's their career choice. And who am I to tell them that they're terrible people for doing it? So it's not a matter of these are terrible people who work in law enforcement. It's a matter of this is a terrible system which we have, which law enforcement happens to be wrapped up in. So Mr. Clevenger says that Spears was reprimanded for that February incident for unprofessional conduct that, quote, reflected poorly on the department. Clevenger said being disciplined 3 times could lead to a suspension and can hinder one's ability to be promoted. The suit seeks unspecified damages and said that the disciplinary incidents known in the department as counseling incidents cannot be appealed. DPS superiors, I should say, need not prove that any policy, rule, order, or law was violated, yet they can still punish a politically disfavored trooper, such as Trooper Spears, without fear that the trooper will appeal, I should say, says Spears' lawsuit. So it seems in the DPS over in Texas, they can accuse you of having broken some rule or regulation within the department and then cite you for that or give you a strike on your record without you having any say in the matter. There's no appeal. There's no investigation. It's just a superior thinks you've done the wrong thing. Thus, they mark you as having done a wrong thing. So there's not really an opinion of the matter. And that's, or any diverse opinion of the matter. Nobody to go to say, well, look, I think this is in error and this needs to be reviewed. There's no system for doing that. So that's a very, very big problem. And it seems that the police are being treated unjustly in this particular case. It seems that the police in different agencies, the sheriff's deputies, the police agencies, and state troopers, what have you, are actually being treated unjustly in this particular manner, where their workplace seems to be rather hostile for a lot of them. It seems that being a good policeman is a punishable offense a lot of the time, and I'm not sure why that is. Why would being a good guy be a punishable offense? I mean, honestly, who really cares if this guy posed with Snoop Dogg? Okay, maybe it was kind of a silly thing to do. Maybe he shouldn't have done it while he was in uniform. But is that really cause to have him reprimanded? I mean, come on. If anything, it would make the agency look better if they said, hey, yeah, he posed with Snoop Dogg, big deal. Because really, probably nobody cares. The only people who would care would be people who are going to post on Facebook who are, 90 years old and they don't know actually who Snoop Dogg is, and they're just wanting to be mad about something, so they have something to be mad about. So really, nobody probably cares if this trooper posed with Snoop Dogg, for heaven's sake. And it kind of shows anyway that Snoop Dogg doesn't really care all that much about the police, and he seems to be on at least a cordial level with them because he posed with the policeman, or the state trooper. So it seems that they have a pretty nice relationship going on there. Same with Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson, I'm sure, has said some things about law enforcement and the feds and such, but that doesn't mean that he's anti this particular person, right? Like, I say a lot of things against the political climate which we have here in the United States, but that doesn't mean that I think that everybody who's ever in Congress is an awful person or is somehow an evil person. Okay, I'll give you an example. I think Bob Corker does a lot of wrong things, but I don't think Bob Corker is an evil man, right? Like, I don't agree with everything Bob Corker does, but I don't think that Bob Corker is an evil man. You see what I'm saying? And the same goes for a lot of members of Congress. So I think that needs to be cleared up. Not because anybody's called me out on it or anything, but it's worth doing. It's worth saying, because just because we criticize the system, just because we criticize the actions of certain people, doesn't mean that this particular individual is an evil person per se, because everyone is going to commit some sin in their lives. Everyone is. There's no way around that. But it's also worth calling out. This is a wrong thing that's happening and needs to be called out. So when, say, a matter of police brutality occurs, that needs to be called out. So when there's a matter of a citizen acting poorly and assaulting a police officer without just cause, that needs to be called out as well. You see, so it's worth it to take sort of a neutral stance in what is the right thing to do, and then call out whoever is doing the wrong thing, you see. Not for purposes of shaming them, not for purposes of putting their head on a stake. It's just because these things need to be pointed out. We need to know what's right and what's wrong. So it's very important. And was it wrong for this particular trooper to pose with Snoop Dogg for a photo? I really don't think so. I mean, I would pose in a photo with Snoop Dogg. I'll put it that way. I would pose in a photo with Willie Nelson if I had the opportunity. I would do that. I put it on Facebook. I put it on Twitter. Oh yeah, I'd be all over that. So can I say that this particular trooper is a terrible person, should be taken out of the office, should not be able to enforce the law anymore because he took a photo with Snoop Dogg or with Willie Nelson? Of course not. Come on. That's such a little thing compared to a lot of the things that a lot of cops get away with. This is nothing. I mean, it's nothing anyway, but comparatively speaking, policemen can get away with beating up somebody, while they're in handcuffs, and this guy takes a photo with Snoop Dogg. Who cares, man? Big deal. Well, if you want to call in, you can. It's 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949, the number to call into the station. We can chat about anything you want. You need to check us out on our website as well, the new and improved, revamped hotnewstalkradio.com, where you can listen to us streaming live over the web, hotnewstalkradio.com. Just go to hotnewstalkradio.com. And in fact, we have a thing going on right now on hotnewstalkradio.com where you can get deals. Click on the link to get deals on hotnewstalkradio.com. And we have a bunch of items that are at a minimum of 50% off. At a minimum, they're 50% off. And that's on hotnewstalkradio.com. And on Saturday at 12 o'clock, there's going to be a special show about those items. That's Saturday at 12 o'clock right here on Hot News Talk Radio. You can listen on hotnewstalkradio.com or on AM 1240. Go to the TuneIn app and search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can listen to us on your smartphone that way. If you have an iPhone, you have an Android phone, you have a BlackBerry, you have a Blueberry, doesn't matter. You have a Windows phone. I don't know why you do, but if you have one, you can listen to us on the TuneIn app. Just get that TuneIn app and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. That's Tune in the app. And, I ordered a pizza last night. Funny story. I ordered a pizza last night because my car broke down. And by broke down, I mean I left the key in the ignition and the battery died. And it was really obnoxious. So I couldn't go anywhere, right? So I ordered a pizza. And the delivery guy was so cool. He's just a really cool guy. So, and he also said that he would listen. So if he does, hey, props to you, man. You were really cool. And thanks for getting me that pizza. It was really fast, by the way. I ordered it like maybe 15 minutes before you showed up. So props to you and your pizza company and all that good stuff. So thank you for delivering that pizza and wings, and I think a drink as well, to me here at Hot News Talk Radio headquarters. If you want to call in and say hi, you can. It's 423-800-8949, and I'd be happy to have you. 423-800-8949. So moving forward, what happened? Where'd it go? Stuff happens when you're on the radio. Stuff happens, and sometimes it's really obnoxious stuff. The stuff that happened this particular time is my phone crashed. And my phone, I keep all my notes on my phone. So, like, if my phone crashes, I don't know what to do, but it's okay because I just got it running again. Yeah, so I have I have Evernote open, and I have Firefox open. I have a bunch of apps open all at the same time, and sometimes my RAM runs out, so it'll kill one of the apps to save RAM. And in this particular case, it killed Evernote, but I got it back. No worries. No worries. We're clean and green here at Hot News Talk Radio is the thing. I don't like paper. I don't like how paper feels. I don't like how paper is sounds. I don't like anything much about paper. I like that it burns. I do like that paper burns. I like that it's useful in making cigarettes. I like that, they don't use paper for cigars, do they? I like that paper is a thing, but I don't like using it. So I don't keep paper notes like I used to. I used to have tons and tons of notes that I would staple together with a big old stapler, and those days are gone, thank goodness. You should see all the notes. I had them piled up in my the back seat of my car, like piled all the way up to the roof. All these stupid papers I had. So now I got a phone, so I don't need to worry about that. Well, anyway. Self-driving apparatuses are becoming a thing of discussion now, where people are both a little bit worried about them and a little bit excited about them, and I fall on the excited spectrum. So a self-driving car is now road legal. It's a Freightliner that has just now been unveiled, and it's the first road legal self-driving truck. So last night on the Hoover Dam, Freightliner, which is owned by the automotive giant Daimler, unveiled the first road legal self-driving truck. At the event last night, the Inspiration truck, they're actually calling it that, the Inspiration truck, was awarded an official autonomous vehicle license plate by the governor of Nevada. Sadly, there was no mention of pricing or commercial availability, but it won't be particularly soon. The license plate is a step towards lots more testing on the roads of Nevada, and we'll see what federal regulators think about the fleets of self-driving trucks. The lorry has the same NHTSA Level 3 rating as Google's self-driving car, which means that it's fully autonomous, but that the driver still has to be able to take over with sufficiently comfortable transition time if the need arises. In this case, while the Inspiration truck could drive itself for hundreds of miles without driver intervention, Daimler is framing this as a conversation around driver fatigue. According to the company, 90% of truck crashes are due to driver error, and driver fatigue plays a role in 1/8 of those crashes. So, imagining that we have a self-driving truck, it's not that this truck would be 100% self-driving, or it could be, but it's not that it will be. Instead, it'll be that you'll have a driver still sitting in I suppose, the cockpit, and he'll be driving the thing essentially, but he'll be there more as a failsafe. So I imagine they'll still be making money. It's not like these people will just suddenly stop making money, but it's going to be possibly less money. I wonder what the motivation behind this is. Now, driver fatigue is a big deal, right? I mean, we hear all the time about truck drivers who fall asleep, and that's not a good thing. They're being pushed very hard by their companies to deliver things and products on time. So this is a very big problem, obviously, for these truck drivers. So the self-driving option is a very good alternative to a truck driver just falling asleep and the truck veering off the road and crashing and, death and who knows what else. Wolfgang Bernard is the head of the company's truck division, and he said at the event last night that the company tested driver brain activity with and without the autonomous driving system enabled. With the system turned on, driver drowsiness decreased by about 25%. The Inspiration truck uses Daimler's Highway Pilot autonomous driving technology, which uses a combination of radar, stereo, computer vision, and other sensors to keep the vehicle on the road. Highway Pilot was first unveiled last year alongside the Mercedes Future Truck 2025. Mercedes and Freightliner both roll up under the larger Daimler AG company. According to the CEO of Freightliner, Martin Daum, the only thing that the truck needs for its self-driving circuits to kick in is nice white stripes. So moving forward, the Freightliner company will face the same hurdles as Google, Audi, and other big markets, or makers, I should say, that are developing their first autonomous vehicles. NHTSA Level 3 is all well and good, but it dictates that the driver always has to be in the cockpit to take over. If the software freaks out or there aren't any road markings, for example, with NHTSA Level 3, liability still does lie with the driver. Stepping up to Level 4, where the driver is not expected to be available for control at any time during the trip, liability becomes a much thornier issue. So liability would probably lie with the trucking company in that case for damages or what have you. So it's kind of weird to think about how we would have a trucking company that would have trucks and no drivers. That's kind of a weird thing to think about, where there's just these trucks driving around delivering different items. But perhaps that's the future. Perhaps with that system, we'll have items delivered to us much quicker, or more items delivered in a much more timely fashion. After all, trucks are still the backbone of the transit system of the United States. Obviously, we need trucks to get our products to and fro. A lot of us get annoyed with trucks, on the highway, but they are definitely necessary. Without them, we would not have half the products, or probably any of the products that we see on our store shelves today. We need these trucks. So if there's any way we can help them out to make them have a more luxurious experience while driving their trucks, then hey, go for it. So long as it's not government sponsored. That's the caveat, because there's no reason for taxpayer dollars to spend on truck driver experiences. It should be in the hands of companies, corporations, what have you. So it's a very interesting concept, the idea of self-driving trucks that would perhaps shape the way that we think about transit and shape the way we think about freighting. Perhaps we'll have self-driving ships, container ships in the future too. Who knows?
This is a modern world. This is the modern world. What kind of fool do you think I am? To think I know nothing of
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better than new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58 between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Baltimore's mayor wants the Justice Department to investigate its police force. Stephanie Rawlings Blake says the community has a fractured relationship with police.
We cannot be timid in addressing this problem, and I'm a mayor that does not shy away from our city's big challenges.
Several days of unrest in Baltimore followed the death of Freddie Gray a week after he was taken into custody. A disturbing statement from ISIS.
New claim by ISIS that it now has 71 fighters now living in 15 U.S. states, but only named Virginia, Maryland, Illinois, Michigan, and California.
Fox's Casey Stigl. The FBI, meanwhile, says social media messages indicate one of the suspects killed in Sunday's Garland, Texas shooting was inspired by ISIS. A sign of flat economic growth, worker productivity fell the first 3 months of the year, hurt by higher labor costs and the harsh winter. Fox News, we report, you decide.
The topic of warrants and police power comes up quite a lot in my everyday conversations. It doesn't help, though, that most of my friends are kind of the same way of thinking. So it's a little bit hard for me to have I don't want to say it's a little bit hard for me to have a constructive conversation, because that's not the case at all. But it's difficult for me to have a conversation with somebody who has a difference of opinion with me. Oftentimes, when I talk to somebody about, the cops or whatever, government in general, or technology in general, the people who I talk to have same or similar ideas about what I think anyway. So, like, okay, as an example, I'll say that I'm not a fan of the police snooping on our phones without warrants, and I think this is a bad thing and it should not happen. But if I say that to any one of my friends, they'll say, well, yeah, I agree completely. So it's hard for me to have any sort of reasonable argument with anybody about the usage of these devices for spying on our cell phones without any sort of warrant. Maybe it's worth explaining what a warrant is, actually, because we haven't really gotten into what a warrant actually is. How a warrant works, a search warrant works, is you have to go to a judge to get a search warrant signed, right? So once that search warrant is signed, and presumably the judge understands what is going on in this particular search, a search warrant is signed, and the police now have the permission to search for either an item or paperwork or what have you, they now have a warrant, right? A right, you might say, to search for an order, even to search through different papers and things for a certain item, for a certain piece of whatever. So that's the idea of a search warrant, is the police have to have special permission from a judge who understands the situation, from a signed affidavit from a police officer or a sheriff's deputy or what have you, to search for a certain item within a premises. Well, now they're saying that warrants are actually not required for police to get your cell phone cell site records. This is a new development which is actually just now coming out, which is, as you can understand, kind of distressing. A federal appeals court ruled on Tuesday that the government does not need a warrant to obtain a suspect's cell site location data record, according to Ars Technica. The 9-2 decision by the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said that the records of towers that a mobile phone uses to make calls are considered business records maintained by a third party and are not protected by the Fourth Amendment. That means that the government may obtain these records if it believes they are relevant to an investigation. So that means then that, just as an example, let's say that you are a person who has anti-state ideas, right? You're a person who thinks that the state is almost inherently immoral, right? The state as in the broader state system. You are anti-statist, okay? Now, you're not violently anti-statist. You're not going to go around shooting people because of your political beliefs, but you do not want to participate in the political system as it is now. You don't think that this political system is just or right or moral in any way. Let's use that as an example. Well, that obviously is a threat to status quo. So the police will think that, or some agency somewhere, the FBI, what have you, think that you might be a domestic terrorist or you might be a threat to national security. So in an investigation on you, they decide to get your cell phone records. Or maybe you're just a homeschooler or somebody who affiliates themselves with the Tea Party or whatever, then you'll be open to an investigation. I mean, there's any sort of criteria that would open you up to an investigation. It's not just being somebody who has conservative ideas, and it's not just being somebody who maybe has radical communist ideas. It could be anybody for any reason could be investigated. I mean, could be. So the case concerns a Florida man. I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing this one. Cortavius, I'm wanting to say. Cortavius Davis, Mr. Davis, who was sentenced to life in prison for a string of robberies in a prosecution that was built with the suspect's cell site records. So Davis can assert neither ownership nor possession of the third party's business records he sought to suppress. Instead, those cell tower records were created by Metro PCS, stored on its own premises, and subject to its control. Cell tower location records do not contain private communications of the subscriber. This type of non-content evidence, lawfully created by a third-party telephone company for legitimate business purposes, does not belong to Davis, even if it concerns him. Like the security camera surveillance images introduced into evidence at his trial, Metro PCS's cell tower records were not Davis's to withhold. Those surveillance camera images show Davis's location at the precise location of the robbery, which is far more than Metro PCS's cell tower location records show. So the Metro PCS cell phone information, they're arguing, is almost not even necessary because there's evidence of him being at this particular location already just based on the photos which exist of him, you see. So there's photos that exist of him, apparently, allegedly anyway, at this particular robbery. So the cell phone records are really just an aside. They're not even necessary for the trial. That's what they're arguing. So this raises a question now of privacy. Is this a infringement of your right to privacy? I guess is the question that should be asked now, where we have this system now where it's apparently, according to law enforcement, it's totally lawful for them to search through third-party records in order to investigate you. So is this right? Is this just? Well, I'm on the fence, actually. You might think that I'm going to be somebody who says, well, the police shouldn't have any access to any records whatsoever. I don't know, because now this is a question of ownership, where you'd think it would be up to the business to withhold that information. Because here's the problem. When you use a cell phone, you do sign a contract a lot of time when you use a cell phone, or even if not, you sign a terms of service agreement. There's some sort of agreement somewhere that states that your cell phone records are going to be held in a third-party facility. That's kind of necessary, actually, for you to use a cell phone. That's how they work. third-party information has to be stored somewhere at some point in time. So I can't really say that it's wrong of the cell phone companies to store this information. Also, you can't really lay claim to that because you didn't create it. It's not really yours. It's just information which the cell phone companies use in order to better serve you, really. I mean, it's just a necessary thing. It's kind of like being upset at a restaurant for creating a ticket from your order. You know, like you order something and the waitress writes down what you want and you get mad at her for writing down what you want. Well, that's kind of the same thing that happens with these cell phone towers, where the company has to create a record of what goes on. They kind of actually have to by law, for one, because there is a legal retention period that's actually required. And for another, it's just good for the business to keep records. You know, like it's any business keeps records on their customers. That's just how it works. So it's hard to say that what the cell phone companies have done is wrong. Now, the police may be using a sort of a loophole in their argument, but I also have to say that, you know, legitimate police work does have to go on, right? Like maybe not necessarily done by the police, maybe done by a sheriff's deputy or what have you. Maybe the particular agency that's doing this police work shouldn't be doing this police work, but the methodology they went through to get this information, really, it's almost negligible, the information they get from these particular cell phone records anyway. So it's hard for me to say. I'm kind of on the fence about it. It's a weird situation, but I will say that this is definitely a side effect of the tech-savvy world we live in, where it's hard for us to live without any records ever having been made of us. Okay, think about it this way. We all have Facebook accounts, right? I mean, probably most of us anyway have Facebook accounts. I have a Facebook account. You probably have a Facebook account. You at least know somebody who has a Facebook account, right? Well, Facebook stores a lot of information about you, which you give up voluntarily, right? Like if you put in where you went to high school, in your Facebook profile, that's now publicly available information. You know, I could look on Facebook and see that you went to such and such high school. So if, let's say, there's some sort of weird occurrence where the high school has lost its records of you, but you put on Facebook that you went to this high school and people are accusing you of having gone to this high school during the time of some event, and you deny having been to that high school, but on your Facebook you've attested having been there, that's where things start to get a little bit weird, because now that information is publicly available, so I don't know, you voluntarily gave up that information. You could just not. I mean, that's what I've done. Facebook does not know where I've gone to school. They think I live in Pripyat, Ukraine right now. So it's, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird situation. It's not illegal to put false information on a Facebook account, as far as I know, because some will argue that it's a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. I would beg to differ, but some would argue that it is, because from my understanding anyway, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, to be in violation of that, you would have to do it for purposes of being misleading, specifically to law enforcement, as in like I'm lying so the police can't find me, instead of doing it as a joke. So I would argue that that's protected speech, and you could probably get a lawyer to agree with you that it's protected speech to say that you live somewhere on Facebook where you don't actually. So it's a very weird situation. It's very hard, in fact, probably impossible, to be totally secure in your person. You really just can't do it. In fact, there's no such thing as complete security anyway. People will say, well, we need to go back to a time where there were no computers and there's no threat. There's always been a threat to your security. Always. There's just always been. Okay, think about it this way. Back in the colonial days, right, or the post-colonial days, just after we seceded, I should say, from the United Kingdom, and we became the United States, which are America, and we were independent colonies now, you were still not safe. I mean, there were robberies even back then. There were highwaymen back then. There were accidents that happened back then. Mortality rates were through the roof because of lack of different medications. So you really were actually safer now than we probably ever have been. That's the weird thing. Now, a lot of people also have a weird idea of what the threat actually is. I mean, people say that we're in danger of being killed by terrorists at any minute now. Well, police have killed more Americans in the last few years than U.S. service members have ever died in Iraq. So that kind of puts that in a strange light. But I don't know, it's just a weird situation where people think that we are in such danger constantly. I don't know why they think that. Why do people think that we're just always in danger? You know, I mean, we are, but it's not like I am in any sort of heightened threat now than I have been yesterday. You know, it's not because of any special circumstances. That's just a fact of life that you're always going to be in danger. You know, everybody is always in danger. That's just how it is. You drive on the street, guess what? You're in danger because somebody could crash into you and kill you. You walk down the sidewalk, guess what? You're in danger. You could fall and break your skull open. You know, I could be standing here right now and a meteorite streaks through the ceiling and hits me in the head and kills me. You know, I could die of a blood clot. I know people who have died of a blood clot. They just drop dead, young people, you know? So you're always in some sort of danger. There's nothing that can be done to prevent that. The state can't protect you. You can't protect yourself. It's just how it is. That's just life. Now, that's not to say that you can't protect yourself in a total manner, right? Like you can protect yourself with weapons against a robber. You can protect yourself with proper knowledge against deceit. You can defend yourself against people who are going to try to lie to you by knowing what the truth actually is, you see. So it's not that you can't protect yourself ever. It's just that you can't protect yourself totally because nobody can. That's simply impossible. So it's really kind of a ridiculous thing where people are worried about their safety all the time, where it's really not necessary half the time, where people are always worried about, well, I need the state I need the police to protect me because what could happen? You could die anyway, whether or not the police are there. Think about the riots in Baltimore right now. Riots are still going on despite the fact that the police exist, right? Like the riots in Baltimore right now are still happening even though there are cops. Even though there are sheriff's deputies, even though there are well-meaning people, there are still riots in Baltimore. There was still looting in Baltimore. There was still vandalism in Baltimore, despite the fact that there were cops. So I'm not sure how you can really argue that we need more of them or that they're somehow a necessary entity when they didn't stop a crime from happening, because that's not their job to stop crimes from happening. Their job is to arrest people after a crime has occurred. It's not crime prevention that's their job. It's enforcement of the law, which is to say arresting somebody after the law has been broken. So a lot of people don't understand that, and it's very, very obnoxious. Well, the NSA, in their infinite quest to make you secure, is now working on a text-to-speech or speech-to-text ability that keeps getting better every year, according to Ars Technica. So for nearly a decade now, the national so-called security agency has been slowly expanding its ability to automatically capture voice calls and convert them to searchable text, in effect creating rough transcripts rough transcripts of specific calls that contain words or phrases of interest. Now, this has been going on for years. You know, since the Patriot Act was passed, we've been having a database where certain words have been indexed and recordings of those words have been kept on file. Okay, there are certain key phrases. Let's make up a phrase. Let's say that you say the phrase, let me find a piece of paper here so it's something completely random. You say the phrase, good faith, okay? Now, that's a totally random phrase I just made up, but we'll use it in place of something that would be a terroristic threat. So you say the phrase good faith, and the phrase good faith is a keyword in some database somewhere where if you say that, then your conversation is now flagged for transcription and review by somebody. So I'm having a phone conversation right now, let's say, and I say, yeah, you know, I do have some good faith in the abilities of such and such, and that's not a terroristic threat. You know, that's not a wrong thing to say, but it's been flagged in a database anyway, and so now it's up for review. Well, the same thing could happen with a lot of different phrases that are flagged. Like you could say, yeah, you know, I've got a bush in the backyard. I really just need to kill that bush, you know? And so you messed up and you said kill bush, but now that's going to be flagged in a database somewhere, you see. So an honest mistake could have something you said flagged in a database. And it's kind of disturbing that there's always this automaton listening to our phone conversations. And we don't really have any way of knowing how it acts or where it is or how it operates or anything like that. Well, the effort for transcription, which the NSA itself has dubbed Google for Voice back in 2006, let me remind you, was revealed on Tuesday by The Intercept, which cited and published a number of documents from the Snowden archive. While some, including Ars Technica, speculated about the existence of such a system at the time, the new documents provide a clear window into the evolution of NSA speech-to-text capabilities. Now, see, that's where I got a little bit confused when I read about this, because I thought everyone knew that this was a thing already. I assumed that this was already a widely known thing. I didn't know that this was something that hadn't been officially released yet. I don't know where I read it before, but I had already read about this particular program. I don't know where, but it was years ago. I mean, I was really young when I read about this. So I don't know where I read about it, but I know I did. So it's really weird to me. But presumably, the NSA is capturing and analyzing significant portions of foreign voice traffic, including Skype, which is now owned by Microsoft, of course. Those captures likely also include calls originating from or terminating within the United States. Last year, The Intercept published other documents showing that the NSA had been capturing and transcribing every call in the Bahamas. The Bahamas. Every call. So if you have ever been to the Bahamas and you made a phone call, that phone call has been transcribed and put in some database somewhere. A document dated August 2006 says the HLT PMO's media mining thrust began as an effort to bring word search capabilities, Google for Voice, to voice language analysts to make it easier for them to locate, intercept rich in intelligence data. Voice word search technology allows to find and prioritize intercept based on its intelligence content in much the same way as they now search in Pinwhale. Don't know what Pinwhale is. For example, in the Global War on Terrorism, GWOT, GWAT, analysts can locate intercept dealing with explosive devices by searching for common terms such as operation or detonator, as well as more subtle terms such as hydrogen peroxide, place names such as Baghdad, or people such as Musharraf. So it's a very wide encompassing, broadly encompassing project which the NSA has put forward. It's not just that it's specifically for capturing terrorists, although that's probably what they'll claim. This means that the voice communications of your average everyday citizen, probably me and probably you, are going to be captured by some guy sitting in an office or some machine sitting somewhere, you see. So it makes a suspect out of everybody. And that's not a climate that we want, where everyone is now a suspect in this new world that we have, this brave new world where everyone is now a suspect in this global war on terror, or GWOT. So everyone is now a suspect in this broad operation to stop terrorism from occurring, thanks to this new transcription system that we have. The same document explains how the prototype, codenamed Reinhardt, no relation to our friend over at the chiropractic office, began in 2004 and was based on a commercial software developed by Nexidia, which is based in Atlanta. Oh no, not Atlanta. I like Atlanta. Reinhardt now operates across a wide variety of missions and languages and is used throughout the NSA or CSS enterprise. One recent example of Reinhardt's success occurred when the Persian Global War on Terror analysts searched for the words negotiations or America in their traffic, and Reinhardt located a very specific and important call that was transcribed verbatim, providing information on an important Iranian target's discussion of the formation of the new Iraqi government. Heaven forbid an Iranian should ever talk about the formation of a new Iraqi government. This is a thought crime. This is a speech crime. Well, something that hopefully is not a crime yet is you listening to us on Hot News Talk Radio, although probably someday it will be. But that's okay, because we'll keep on trucking. HotNewsTalkRadio.com is the place you can listen to us. Go to HotNewsTalkRadio.com. We have a link up there, lots of helpful links on HotNewsTalkRadio.com, one of which is for saving money. Click on Great Savings on HotNewsTalkRadio.com, and you can see all the different items that we have for sale, and all of them are at a minimum of 50% off on HotNewsTalkRadio.com. On Saturday, at 12 o'clock, that's 12 o'clock noon, lunchtime, there's going to be a special show that's going to be run here on Hot News Talk Radio that is specifically about those items that are going to be sold on HotNewsTalkRadio.com. So listen to us here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, at 12 o'clock on Saturday. And you can hear about all the different great deals that we have going on here on Hot News Talk Radio. You can go to hotnewstalkradio.com to listen to us streaming live to your computer as well. If you have a smartphone, get the TuneIn app and then search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can listen to us on your smartphone, be it a BlackBerry, Android, Windows Phone, iPhone, what have you. You can listen to us on Hot News Talk Radio on the TuneIn app. There's a lot of different ways to listen to us here on Hot News Talk Radio, and you have a lot of different programs that we have on Hot News Talk Radio as well, such as Hot News Now, which is my other show, where we go through all the day's news, be it local, national, regional. We go through it all on Hot News Now from 5 to 6 every weekday. Of course, there is the very esteemed Nuganomics.com with David Toulis from 1 to 3 right here on Hot News Talk Radio. Sean Hannity as well. And we have Cowboy Up with Tex every weekday here from 6 to 7, where Tex comes in his nice, shiny Spurs, and he discusses all the day's events, as he says, here on HotNewsTalkRadio.com. So Ars Technica asked John Harmer who is Nexedia's vice president for marketing, if he could describe the nature of his company's relationship with the NSA and the intelligence community, he said, "I'm going to have to give you a no comment on that." So I'm noticing that's a very common phrase, by the way. Whenever anyone's going to talk about the NSA, they really don't want to talk about the NSA. So they just say, no comment. I can't discuss this particular matter. According to federal procurement records, Nexedia software is used by the FBI and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, among other agencies. So the FTC even uses it. That's very strange. The Intercept also published pages from the fiscal year 2013's Black Budget, the section of the annual budget approved by Congress, which is kept secret from the public. So the Black Budget is also something that was published, 2013's Black Budget. It shows that the intelligence community sought $29.4 million in funding and wanted to broaden its capabilities. Of course, it's all about that expansion. Extend name-finding solutions to support named entity extraction for 12 additional languages to include at least 3 languages that are less commonly taught. Create and demonstrate solutions in 3 to 5 languages for the much harder problem of extracting relations between entities. These capabilities will yield automated solutions to uncover pertinent facts within both unstructured written communications and spoken communications that have been transformed into text. I'm pretty sure that paragraph was also generated by a computer, because no human could ever write something so impersonal as that. The Intercept also pointed out that the Defense Intelligence Agency, in a November 2014 Facebook post, announced a related contest completed earlier this year, which wrote, "The development of automatic speech recognition able to perform well across a variety of acoustic environments and recording scenarios on a natural conversational speech is a holy grail of the speech research community."
This is a modern world. This is the modern world. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and 1 topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that